Thank God it's Friday, Eastern Football League lovers. It's week 15 in the EFL and there's 22 big matches happening across divisions 4, 3, 2 and 1. We've got the usual suspects with us in here on a Friday afternoon at EFL House. And joining me, as he does each week from the EFL, is the media manager, Ben Waterworth. G'day, Ben.
Good afternoon to you, BWS. There's now 4 weeks to go until the Choose Tap EFL Finals Series, and things are starting to get hot in the EFL. Looking forward to previewing all of tomorrow's games.
Well, the man who's on every EFL Sunday and pretty much the Friday preview these days is the media team's Daniel Cencic. Good afternoon to you, Dan.
Very good afternoon to you, BWS and Ben Waterworth. Can't wait to get stuck into this one. We're in the business end of the season.
Well, let's have a look at the first game in Division 4, shall we, Ben? And, of course, it's out at Domini Reserve tomorrow with Park Orchards taking on Sylvan. The Sharks have been hard to beat at home this year.
They have been very, very impressive in the past month or so, BWS. They've won a few games that they should have won, and they've also taken it up to a few of those top teams in Division 4 as well. They took it up to Nunawading last weekend, taking them to 6 points, and Forest Hill a week or so before that, losing only by 2 points. They're not far away, Park Orchards. Watch this space. As for Sylvan, we saw them firsthand last weekend. They would be shouted to go down to Ferntree Gully by 20 points last weekend. Just weren't able to put the score on the board when they needed to, and I think that was the experience of Ferntree Gully coming through in the end, as they had been there and done that. Out there at Domini Reserve, Park Orchards are every chance, but Sylvan, they just need to win this game. No doubts about that. They're playing for a spot in the finals. They won't let this one slip. Sylvan for mine and Ashford have a pretty good day out.
They were unlucky to go down last weekend, Sylvan, right into the game until time on virtually in the last quarter. They're not going to let this one slip. They've got some big, very winnable games coming up in the next couple of weeks with Canterbury and the Eastern Lions. They're not going to let this one go, and I think they'll win by about 6 goals plus. Let's move on to the second game, Daniel Cencic, and this one is going to be a beauty too, out at Forest Hill Reserve with the Zebras taking on the Lions.
Yeah, it makes for a really interesting clash. Of course, Forest Hill coming off the bye and Nunawading coming away from a very close win against a desperate Park Orchard side last week. And logic says that Nunawading will be bruised after last week's encounter and Forest Hill really fresh after the break. And on paper, these two sides are really evenly matched. Forest Hill in 6th place, Nunawading in 5th, and a huge chance for both sides to really consolidate their spot. They're both on 7 and 5 to the season, so this becomes a really all-important clash. Look, Nunawading attack better than Forest Hill, but Forest Hill defend much better, so go figure there. We're in for a very big matchup up forward for Nunawading. And that says that perhaps Nunawading in the midfield this season are conceding a few too many clearances, so this is where I think the match will be really won and lost. Players for Forest Hill such as Michael Cardamone's in fantastic form, Mark Shoulders, David Black, and the Sincotta boys. And of course for Nunawading, we've got Boltruet, Ross, Suckle, Alderton. So all great players there, so they should match up really well. This one's a real flip of the coin, but I'm going to go for Forest Hill just because they've been in really good form recently.
Only percentage separating these two sides, with Nunawading sitting on 104, Forest Hill on 93. You'd think the Zebras would want to give this one a really good go tomorrow on their home patch, but I just get the feeling that Nunawading, I'm going the other way from you, Daniel Cencic, tomorrow. Christian Holdsworth had a fantastic season to date, and of course you've already mentioned Suckle and Alderton. I think Nunawading are up for the challenge. One-sided affair is expected out at Batterham Reserve tomorrow, Ben Waterworth, with Canterbury taking on the top of the table, Basin.
Won't spend too long on this one, BWS, because the Basin is looking great guns at the moment, whereas Canterbury, I think, just want the end of the season. The great thing about the Basin is just their attacking prowess. They've had 5 players kick over 20 goals so far this season, led by Brent Galicio with 49 goals, and he's only played 9 out of the Basin's 12 matches. The best thing for the Basin this year, their best recruit certainly has been Clinton King, of course the ex-AFL player. He's been named in the best 8 times out of the 12 matches, so great signs there for the Basin. As for Canterbury, a real positive is Levi King. He's played every game for Canterbury, a Leader Young Gun nomination, and he's been named in the best 8 times. Unfortunately, it's being left to too few for Canterbury at the moment, and I get the feeling the Basin will win this one, possibly by triple figures.
They've been averaging 20 goals a week, the Basin, throughout 2012, and Canterbury, their highest is 18, but that's all the way back in round 2 against Kilsyth. They come up against the might of the Bears, who enjoy putting sides away, and there'll be no latitude tomorrow for Canterbury, the Basin, to win easy. A side that sits just behind the Basin on the ladder is South Belgrave, Daniel Cencic, and they take on Ferntree Gully Eagles tomorrow afternoon in what shapes to be a pretty good clash and maybe a future finals preview.
Oh, yeah, certainly. After quarter time last week, Ferntree Gully were impressive. Their ball use was a bit suspect in the first quarter against Sylvan, of course, but they showed us how dangerous a side they can be when they correct up and they hit targets all around the ground and take their opportunities. And the great thing about their performance last week was their style of play really brought others into the game. They upped the physicality when Sylvan challenged them in their area also, so they don't take a backward step. And players like Calaguiri's an example of this, who put his hard body in all day. Look, the Ferntree Gully defenders did a fantastic job at nullifying the influence of the informed Sylvan spearhead Ash Froud last week. They need to do the same job this weekend on Lucas Appleby, who kicked a bag last weekend and a bag pretty much every single other weekend too. Leary, Lockhart and Muscat are good backmen for the Ferntree Gully Football Club, and they really need to band together again this week. And if one of those defenders can affect a spoil, then Lockhart is really dangerous when he gathers that loose ball, and he's great at running the footy out of defence and disposing of it out of trouble as well. But look, South Belgrave have got plenty of class in their side. Bilston's had a fantastic year. Willenberg's had a great year as well. Burnell, Ferguson, and of course we mentioned Lucas Appleby. They're a very hard-working unit that play for each other week in, week out. I think South Belgrave have got this one comfortably.
I'm not so sure about the comfortable victory, Dan, although South Belgrave on their home ground this year have proved that 15 goals plus is what they go out there to play on their day. Ferntree Gully, they were fantastic last week. They were challenged throughout the game in different periods, in the first and in the second and in the third and right up until the last quarter. So they'll be really excited about the challenge that South Belgrave presents for them tomorrow. They'll know that they need to step up against these top sides like the Basin and South Belgrave to be able to have any chance come finals instead of just making up the numbers. Tomorrow's a big chance for them. I think they're going to give it a really good shake too, but I think the Saints will get over the line just. Last game in Division 4 tomorrow afternoon, Ben Waterworth, is the big clash out at Pink's Reserve between Kilsyth and the Eastern Lions. How do you see this one going?
Simply a must-win game for the Eastern Lions. They currently sit 7th on the ladder with 6 wins and 6 losses. Above them, though, in 4, 5 and 6, sits 3 teams with 7 wins. The good thing for the Eastern Lions is that they've got a very handy percentage, and I get the feeling they'll come out to Pink's Reserve tomorrow and look to try and get a big victory over Kilsyth. Great to see Jamie Devonish named best on ground for the Eastern Lions last weekend. It was the 8th time he was named in the best players. Jason Mont's also been in fantastic form. He'll be tough. He'll be tough to beat for the Division 3 and 4 Leader Young Gun award. As for Kilsyth, they found a couple of forwards in Jordan Chenhall and Jamie Ockwell over the past couple of weeks. They have kicked 39 goals between them so far in season 2012. But on paper, the Eastern Lions, they look like a much classier team, a much more settled team, and simply they just need to win this one to keep in touch with that top 5. The Eastern Lions quite comfortably.
There's too much on the line tomorrow afternoon for the Eastern Lions to drop this game against Kilsyth. Yes, the Cougars are an improved side, and yes, they play pretty good football when they're at home. But for the Eastern Lions, there's still a chance to make finals, and they're not going to let this one slip. However, I'm not writing off Kilsyth at home. I see this as a definite danger game. That's Division 4 done and dusted for another week with Surrey Park having the bye. They'll be back next week. Division 3 time and some great games happening across Division 3 tomorrow afternoon, 6 in fact, with the first one out at Jubilee Park between Ringwood and Wantirna South. Daniel Cencic, this should be a beauty.
Well, yeah, they don't come much more evenly matched than these two sides. Both are 8 and 6 of the season. 5th versus 6th. Only 5 points separate them in points for this season. That's in Wantirna South's favour, of course. And less than 50 points against separates the two sides for this season. That's in Ringwood's favour. So it is definitely going to be a close game. The key matchups are going to be the ones that win and lose this match. We talk about Daniel Benome a lot, but how can we not when he's kicking bags of 6 nearly every week? And speaking of Matt Clark last Sunday, he was certainly adamant Benome would stay deep in attack this season. Ringwood's quality of the Burmeisters, Trent Farmer, will be interesting against the likes of Phillips, Teakle, Freeman, and of course Braden Harkness, who's been fantastic down back for Wantirna South this season. He's had a really, really good year. And the thing that has stood out for me the most for Wantirna South is their forwards this season. Their ability to shake those tight defenders of Boronia last week, of course. So they'll need to do that again this week. They'll need to overcome the defenders of Ringwood to have any chance of winning this game. Not very much separates these two sides, but Wantirna South are on a real mission here, and every game is like a mini-final from here on in season 2012, and they should get home by a single figure.
Haven't Wantirna South been impressive in their football in the last month or so? And they come up against a side who have been fantastic themselves in Ringwood. I don't think I've been too fair to Ringwood this year. Probably more times than not, I've backed against the Redbacks tomorrow. I've got a feeling that they'll be really looking forward to this clash against another finals contender. Ringwood have had the better form throughout the season 2012. Wantirna have been terrific over the last month, as I've already said. Ringwood will know that they're coming at them, and I reckon they just might stop them in their tracks tomorrow. Chirnside Park have been struggling Ben Waterworth of late, and they return to Kimberley Reserve tomorrow against Templestowe, who probably need a little bit of return to form themselves.
Templestowe smell blood BWS, and they take on a Chirnside Park side that is, as you said, struggling for form at the moment. They've actually lost their past 7 games in a row, so not a lot going right for Brett Davidson and the troops at the moment. One thing that is going right is James Moore. He received the Leader Young Gun nomination during the week. He's been named in the best 6 times this year, and he has played all 14 matches. But there just doesn't seem to be anyone for Chirnside Park who's willing to step up and really announce themselves and take this team forward. As for Templestowe, gosh, the last 2 weeks have been pretty disappointing for John Brown's men. 88-point loss to Wantirna South, and they went down to North Ringwood quite convincingly as well last weekend. Paul Eccles and Kane Magames have been the guys putting through the goals for the Dockers this season, and Kane Magames is having a fantastic year. They just need a little bit more support, and I think they might be able to get that support through Jamie Bone, who's come back into the side in recent weeks and more really might be able to help this team out. Along with Alistair Quinn in the ruck, who is arguably the best ruckman in Division 3 at the moment. I think Templestowe will get quite a comfortable victory on the weekend. They need it because they don't want to slip too far behind that top 4 in Division 3.
They were the informed side only a fortnight ago, Templestowe. They've been a touch shaky, but they'll return to form tomorrow against the Panthers, and quite convincingly too, I think. Huge match out at Quambia Reserve at Daniel Cencic with North Ringwood taking on Boronia. What a clash this has been over recent seasons, and it's carried through to this year.
Yeah, North Ringwood have proven this season that they really are the team to beat, and they really rose to the challenge last weekend against one of the hunters in Division 3, Templestowe, of course. They knocked them off rather convincingly, and Boronia really need to bounce back. Of course, they had the loss against Wantirna South last week. They need to keep themselves entrenched in that top echelon of the Division 3 ladder. If they don't win, there are a few teams that can leapfrog them on the ladder. Ringwood and Wantirna South, for example, who have got stronger percentages, so if they get up, Boronia could be in a bit of trouble ladder-wise at the business end of the season. But it's not the time of the season to be dropping places on the ladder. When you look at North Ringwood's side this season, their main strength has been able to put all the sides considered their challenges away good and properly, and this has been through the form of Anthony Sharp, Jack Whelan, Van Noonan, Wood, and of course Matthew Weeks has had a really strong season this year. I expect to see more of the same tomorrow afternoon. What we get with North Ringwood each and every week is a consistent, even spread of good players, so that we should see more of that tomorrow afternoon. North Ringwood comfortably.
North Ringwood, they're used to being on top of the ladder. They're used to sides coming at them. They're used to the big challenges. Over recent seasons, Boronia versus North Ringwood has seen some unbelievable clashes, including a draw. This year, Boronia have had great players in Jess Bolton and Nathan Allen. Luke Allison has been fantastic too, but the players that you mentioned, Daniel Cencic and Matty Weeks and Anthony Sharp, but throwing there Daniel Wood and players like Dwayne Kelly and North Ringwood look like a very good side from goal line to goal line. At Quambia Reserve, they're a too hard a side to beat. It may be close, but I don't think it will be. I think North Ringwood are going to put Boronia away tomorrow, 6 goals plus. The Whitehorse Pioneers went down in a very narrow clash last week to Coldstream Ben Waterworth and now find themselves on the bottom of the ladder, and they come up against the Glen at Waverly Hawks, who are nearly the informed side of Division 3.
From what I understand, the Pioneers were devastated after last weekend's loss, and rightly so. They've now gone to the bottom of the ladder, and they're a fair chunk of percentage behind Coldstream now, who sit second bottom on the ladder. Look, the Glen Waverley Hawks are going in the complete opposite direction. They've been the surprise packets, no doubt, in Division 3. We've been saying that all throughout the season. Sam Zickman put in another best on-ground performance. He's been one of the pickups of the season in Division 3 so far this year, and been really impressed with Andrew Azzopardi's form up forward. Normally being used as a swingman, predominantly down in defence, but he's gone forward this year, given great support to Matty Carnelli and booted 31 goals. Out at Whitehorse Reserve, away from home, I don't think the Glen Waverley Hawks will have too much trouble. They'll win by plenty.
2 wins in a row now for the Glen Waverley Hawks after their slip up to Mitchum a fortnight ago. They'll see this as an opportunity to run some players into some quality form, although they're already in good form, aren't they, the Glen Waverley Hawks, and they'll do this in a canter. Coldstream get 2 games at home in a row, Daniel Cencic, and tomorrow they take on Mitchum, who are making a late finals charge.
Mitchum certainly are making a late finals charge, BWS, and what they've really impressed me with is the way they've been able to gather a spread of goal kickers rather than relying on 1 or 2 men that often bring sides undone. These players that have kicked multiple goals, players like Searle, Glossop, Faulkner, to name a few, have really been hitting the scoreboard of late. and have been really hard to match up on. And what we've got with Mitchum is 22 committed players out there, coming out there and playing their role each week, playing for each other. Coldstream are coming off a really close win last weekend against the White Horse Pioneers. It's one they really had to win, and it was widely said that the loser of that game would face relegation, so they rose to the challenge there. But the problem this week is they face a side in real finals contention, as we mentioned, with everything to play for. Mitchum are stuck in a logjam of sides between 4th and 7th on the ladder, so each game from here on in is like a mini-final for Mitchum. They've got players also like James Quilty and Benjamin Law who are in fantastic form. Mitchum should win this game easy.
Coldstream will take a lot out of that win against Whitehorse last weekend. They came from behind and confidence will be really high. They've had serviceable players all season in Daniel Price and Rod Williams. Matty Lawrence, he's had a terrific year. Are these players going to be the ones to stand up again on Saturday afternoon and get Coldstream that other game break away from the bottom of the ladder and out of dangerous territory? Mitchum, as you said, Ben Law's been fantastic this year, but I like the season of Ben Miller and David Searle. They've been great players for the Mitchum Tigers all year round. They're still in the hunt. They've been coming for the last couple of weeks, and they're not going to let this one go. The Tigers to win. The last game in Division 3 at Ben Waterworth becomes a little bit of an interesting one these days. Warrandyte taking on Heathmont down at Warrandyte Reserve.
Very interesting game, BWS, because Warrandyte have certainly been a much improved side over the past month or so, whereas Heathmont, well, their finals chances are starting to slip. They're still in it, no doubt about that, but just their recent performances have been a little bit unconvincing. They went down to the Glen Waverley Hawks only by 6 points last weekend in a very strange game of footy. Darren Sheen kicked all of Heathmont's 9 goals. In fact, he kicked 9 goals, 4 of Heathmont's 9 goals, 10. At the other end, you've got Michael Magic Hands Morello. Will he wave his magic wand on the weekend and put through another bag of goals? He kicked 6 last weekend. It could possibly turn out to be a battle of the two big forwards. For mine, Heathmont have too much to play for. I think they'll enjoy playing out there at Warrandyte Reserve. And with Anthony Hickey continuing his great season, he had a great 2011 campaign. He's backed it up in 2012. With him running through the midfield and Sheen up forward, Heathmont need to win this game, and they will.
Terrific feat by Darren Sheen last week to kick all of his sides at 9 goals for the afternoon, but they're looking for other avenues if they want to make any charge for the finals. Yes, they're only 1 game out and percentage, but they've got some very winnable games, the Jets, over the next fortnight against Churnside Park and Coldstream. Warrandyte's another one of these sides that you would expect the Jets to beat tomorrow, but Warrandyte have won their last few games at home this year, and they've got a couple of upsets along the way as well. Yes, their form since the halfway mark has been very encouraging, the Bloods, but they come up against a side who are still vying for a final spot. Heathmont aren't going to let this one go and look for several goal kickers tomorrow. That's Division 3 done for another week. 6 great games as you go local for your footy. There's only 5 games in Division 2 tomorrow, Daniel Cencic, and we're going to start out at Mount Waverley Reserve with the Blues taking on Mulgrave.
Yeah, 2 wins on the trot now for Mulgrave. Can they make it 3 in a row? That's the question. They face another side in the Waverley Blues who were in a real similar boat to the Lions earlier this season, who were struggling to win matches, but once they won one and broke their duck, they gathered a heap of confidence and showed us all what they're really capable of. Although both teams are out of the finals calculations, it still doesn't make them any less motivated, as we've seen, and the Lions and the Blues both want to win matches. Look at the players from both sides. Thomas Harley's been in fantastic form, Robbie Hartfield and, of course, Glen Marnie. And to Mulgrave, we've got Adam Booth, Siakoulis and Hansford as well. So quality on both sides of the fence. But I just get the feeling that Mulgrave have more contributors, even contributors right across the board. I've gotten the feeling with the Waverley Blues this season that they've left it to maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 players to drag them over the line each week. Mulgrave, it's a real team effort the last 2 weeks, and they might continue that tomorrow. Mulgrave for 3 in a row.
Both these sides beat each other on similar form, Dan. Waverley Blues and Mulgrave both having beaten Doncaster East over the last couple of weeks. Earlier on in the season, it was Waverley to get up, but I think the tables may have turned a little bit on this one. Mulgrave's form over the last couple of weeks has been very encouraging. They're a young list that started to really gel and play some pretty confident football with one another. We had them in on the huddle on Wednesday night, and they were very confident. They see this as a mini grand final for the Mulgrave Football Club this weekend. The Waverley Blues, they're out of danger territory. They might just get pipped tomorrow. The Lions for a 3-peat. Very important game for the Doncaster Football Club tomorrow afternoon down at Trams Reserve, Ben Waterworth, taking on the Upper Ferntree Gully Kings.
Season-defining game for the Sharks, no doubt about that, BWS. After another loss last weekend and Mulgrave winning, of course, the Sharks now sit on the bottom of the Division 2 ladder, and the way things are going, they need a victory to get over the line against Mulgrave because they do have a tougher run than what the Lions do. As for Upper Ferntree Gully, they've got a little bit of class running through that midfield, and one of those players is Alex Calder, who this week got nominated for the Division 1 and 2 Leader Young Gun Award. He's been named in the best 8 times. He's played all 14 matches for the Gully. They've got a beauty there, and they've also got a beauty in Matty Petrarca up forward, an elusive forward who just knows where the goals are. He's kicked 39 goals so far this year, and expect him to add to that tally quite significantly against the Doncaster defence. I know they've got plenty of great names down there, led by Matty Schimmelbusch and Ben McGarmers, but for mine, Petrarca, Calder, those kind of guys will get the Gully over the line on the weekend.
When these sides met in round 6, Ben Waterworth, Upper Ferntree Gully came to play and they put away Doncaster that afternoon. Now we fast forward to round 15 and Doncaster find themselves in a situation, if they can't pinch a win in the next couple of weeks, they may find themselves heading straight back down to Division 3 next year. Upper Ferntree Gully mathematically can still make the finals, and they can't drop games like this to Doncaster if they're to have any part later on. They have a very ordinary percentage, Upper Ferntree Gully, and they'll look tomorrow as an opportunity to build on that as they charge for the finals. It's 1v2 out at Heights Reserve tomorrow, Daniel Cencic, with Muralbark taking on Roeville. Sure to be a big crowd, and what a cracker match it's set to be.
Well, we often hear a lot of cliched talk in footy about how big matches are just another game, but speaking to a few of the Muralbark people through the week, from clubmen to players and their coach Brett Fisher, they all know it just is not another match. Brett Fisher knows how big it is, as does Matty Polkinghorne. Top 2 spot on the line for both sides, and it's well known that to give themselves the best shot at a flag this season, that the top 2 is a must. There's quality on both sides with players like Linford, Smith, Polkinghorne, Talevski, but on the other side of the coin for Roeville, we've got players like Nathan Hicks, Matty Stanley, Bussey, the Garners. Crozier has also been very good for them. So some mouth-watering matchups right across the ground. Look, Muralbark play their home deck really well, and as we saw them against Montrose a few weeks ago, they relished the hard in and under style that we saw them play. Players like Roach and Georgiou were fantastic for them, and the conditions always suit them at home. I'm going to go for Muralbark only because it's at Heights Reserve. It's a real toss of the coin. Muralbark, barest of margins.
Could we be seeing a grand final preview on our hands out at Heights Reserve tomorrow? Muralbark have proved to be a very good side at home this year. The ground isn't in the greatest condition, but when they get out there, they know how to play it well. Roeville will be looking forward to this challenge against Muralbark tomorrow, but they have to come up against the likes of the Georgios, the Armstrongs, Matty Polkinghorne, Michael Smith. How good has he been this year? And of course, Talevski is due for a big bag in a big match. I tipped against Muralbark against Montrose at home a fortnight ago. They taught me a lesson that day. I'm not going to do it again. I think the Mustangs will get up just. Doncaster East have been struggling in recent weeks, Ben Waterworth, and it's not getting any easier for the Lions tomorrow. They're back at Zerbies, but they come up against Montrose.
You're right, BWS. Does not get easy at all for the Lions. They're coming up against a Montrose side who are coming off a big victory last weekend, 71-point victory over Donvale last weekend. And I think it was a victory that gave them back some confidence that they lost a fortnight ago against Muralbark. Good to see Billy Schilling and Adam Cook kicking 11 goals between them last weekend. Billy Schilling's kicked 55 this year. Cook's kicked 39, so the Twin Towers are working very nicely up forward for Montrose. As for Doncaster East, they do have the players up forward who can kick bags of goals just based on potential, but they just haven't delivered so far this year. Shane Thompson is an absolute beauty. If he was played up in the forward line more often, he would kick a bag of goals because he's one of the most accurate kicks for goal I think I've ever seen in the Eastern Football League. Lee Murphy's starting to hit some form as well. He's been named in the best 9 times out of his 14 matches, but unfortunately he doesn't have a lot of other support. Montrose to win quite comfortably out there at Zerbies, with Schilling and Cook set for a day out.
It's going to be too hard for Doncaster East against Montrose tomorrow afternoon, although it's at Zerbies Reserve and they've had players like Daniel Mead and Jared Marshall step up in certain games, and Ayubi and Luke McLeod. Tomorrow they come up against the might of the Demons, Brett Johnson and Sam Goodman. These guys have just been super week in, week out for the Montrose Football Club. The Demons easy. The radio game tomorrow afternoon on 98.1 Radio Eastern from 1 p.m. is Donvale taking on Bayswater out at Donvale Reserve. 2 sides vying for 4th spot, Dan.
Absolutely BWS, and what I've loved about Bayswater is that two of their more important goal kickers, McInerney and Hayhurst, haven't been playing, but they've been able to find that spread of goal kickers that has really been able to hurt sides on the scoreboard. Last week it was led by Brent Jane, who's kicked 32 goals for the season, so he's in fantastic form, and that will really help the Waters come tomorrow afternoon when they'll be striving to close that gap to break into the top 4 of the competition. Donvale, of course, had the draw early in the season, so if their result doesn't fall their way, they'll be clinging to that spot by only just 2 points by the end of tomorrow afternoon. And Bayswater, the biggest favour they can do for themselves is win tomorrow. But look for Donvale, there's plenty of class there. Nicholas Murphy and Jack Purcell, between them they've got 68 goals for the season, and Andrew Pettigrove's been named in the best 7 times. It's a real toss of the coin this game. I know I say that about a lot of matches, but Division 2 is especially even. I'm going to go for the upset, Bayswater to get home.
If Donvale can beat Bayswater tomorrow, they'll make finals, they'll shut the gate. Whereas if Bayswater win, they draw within 2 points of Donvale. And if you look ahead on the draw, it actually seems like they might have an easier run home. Donvale, they've got this game at home where they've been very good this year. Pettigrove's been fantastic, Cotsford and Kruger. But which Bayswater's going to show up tomorrow at Donvale Reserve? Is Brent Jane going to fire in 2 weeks in a row, and where will he play? Will the Galvin boys, who know what big games are all about, going to fire? Schroeder's had a sensational year, as has Sam Nevins. I think Bayswater are up to this challenge tomorrow. I think Donvale sense the Waters are coming for them too. It's going to be close, but Bayswater just. That's all games covered in Division 2 for another week. Hope your team wins as you go local for your footy. Well, it's time to go through the greatest division of local football in the country, Ben Waterworth. It's Division 1 time in the Eastern Football League. The first game we're going to have a look at is out at the LSO, Lilydale taking on Croydon. This game creates a bit of interest.
A couple of weeks ago, Lilydale were almost in relegation territory, but they've really turned their form around. Love the core group of senior players at Lilydale. Nathan O'Keefe, Daniel Breeze, Ryan Breeze, Ashraf Davies, James Roach, and Robbie Allen, Marcus Hoddies. That's a great group of core A-grade players that can probably match it with any other team in Division 1 in terms of that A-grade against A-grade. They just don't quite have the depth to go up to that next level yet. As for Croydon, well, they're not quite out of Division 2 territory yet. They still have a chance to stay in Division 1. Where that win's going to come, I'm not 100% sure. I talked about A-grade players. Croydon certainly have some of them. In Dale Ball, Andrew Hughes, Brad Kelleher's also a very, very rock-solid defender as well. For mine, though, Lilydale have really turned the corner in the past month or so. They had a bit of a touch-up against Scoresby last weekend, but I think they'll bounce back. The Falcons for mine.
It's been a good second half of the season to the Lilydale Football Club, and they won't want to let their guard down against Croydon tomorrow afternoon, who themselves have been pretty good in recent weeks. They've had players like Lee Kimpton and Jimmy Grant really stand up for them this year, Croydon, in what has probably been a disappointing season for the Blues. But Lilydale, since the halfway mark, players like Ryan and Daniel Breeze, Ash Davies and Ben Power and Chris Shaw, these players have really stood up. They were disappointed with how the first part of the season unfolded. They wanted to make a charge and see how they go in the second, and they're doing a good job of it too. They'll win this game. South Croydon return to Cheon Park tomorrow, Dan, but they come up against Noble Park. Are they going to be able to find some form?
Well, Noble Park are on the rampage at the moment. There's no doubt about it. They keep getting injuries to key players, but they manage to keep on covering. Ziggy Olwyn stretched it off last weekend, of course, so it'll be interesting to see if he lines up or not. And, of course, the injuries earlier in the season to Craig Anderson, that was a huge loss. Bradley Scalzo and Big Chucky Manson was out for a while, but they'd managed to cover his loss as well. Look at South Croydon. Michael King's been in fantastic form. Trent Zoma, James Crow, Robbie Mallison, Daniel King as well, right to mention he's been good too. But look, you just look at the class of Noble Park. I think this would be a really one-sided affair, and Noble Park should get this one in a canter.
As the year goes on, South Croydon's season is continuing to get more and more disappointing. For what started off quite promising, they've only got 2 wins to date, and I really can't see them coming anywhere near Noble Park tomorrow. Yes, they've been bridesmaids in several games, and Daniel King and Molnar, Descent, these have been guys that have been great for the Dogs this year, but they need the second-string players to step up and put in a really good team performance if they're going to come close to Noble Park. They're a team of stars, and they'll put South Croydon back in the kennel. Some really good clashes, Ben Waterworth, in recent years between Blackburn and Vermont, and tomorrow shapes as a beauty as well.
And it's a bit of a danger game, I think, for Vermont. Of course, earlier on in the season, Blackburn knocked off the Eagles, Graham Johns kicking a goal with only about 20 seconds to go to put the Burners in front. Vermont, though, they are the form team of Division 1 at the moment. No one can stop them. They're up to 10 wins for the season. They've climbed up to third on the ladder. For so long, we've been used to seeing Matty Gregg and Ash Froud controlling that Vermont forward line, but there's a new brigade in town. Jared Dalton, a former fullback, has gone forward. He's kicked 33 goals for the year. Tom Carman, he's been very consistent with 28 goals, but they may have found an elusive small forward in Nathan Henley. Won a Division 1 best and fairest as a wonderful midfielder, but he went forward last weekend, kicked 6 goals, and was named best man on the ground. Apparently played a lot like Ash Froud on the weekend. Fantastic signs for Vermont, and it helps when you've probably got the best player in Division 1 in Ryan Muller in sensational form as well. As for Blackburn, we have to pay tribute to Brad Murray. He's been named in the best 11 times this season out of 13 matches. Fantastic consistency on his behalf. Blackburn will be no easy beats tomorrow. They've been in pretty good form over the past fortnight. Took Baldwin to 5 points 2 weeks ago and had a great win over East Ringwood in a bit of a shootout last weekend. Vermont should continue their form, but they cannot afford to get ahead of themselves. The swagger is back, but they can't afford to be too arrogant.
Generally a pretty good game between these sides always, and earlier on in the year it was Blackburn away from home getting the chocolates in a very tight affair out at Tarara Road. The tides have turned a little bit as the season's progressed, and Vermont are making their charge not only for the finals but for the premiership now. I just think that Vermont's form over the last 6 weeks is second to none. They are the informed side of Division 1 at the moment, and they'll beat Blackburn tomorrow. East Burwood are going for 3 wins on the trot tomorrow afternoon, Daniel Cencic, but they come against the might of the Baldwin Tigers.
Well, the problem with East Burwood this season is they haven't been able to find any consistency in their winning form. They've won 2 and then lost a few in a row, and they'll win some games and lose a few more in a row. And I think it's down to effort right across the whole team. Anthony Mariani's been outstanding for them, as has Robbie Campbell, and Daniel Gribben up forward's been good too. Stephen Henshaw, Matty Mariani as well. But look, too much is left to too few often at East Burwood, and you look at a side like Baldwin where they've got even contributions right across the field, players like Luke Barker, Jeffrey Goebbels, kicking goals left, right and centre, and of course Rennie Gilchrist, Sanfilippo and Roderick Crow down back marshalling the troops has been absolutely brilliant for them this year too. Where this will be won and lost will be in the midfield. Ryan McMahon can do some real damage on the scoreboard, and he runs hard both ways, as does Benjamin Harris. He's a fantastic player for them, and Scotty Cracker's fantastic around the goals, knows where to find the goals too. I think Baldwin will get this one in a canter. I'd love to tip East Burwood for 3 in a row, but it's not going to happen.
Bit of a return to form for the Rams over the last fortnight, and they might just fancy themselves a little bit tomorrow against the Baldwin Tigers. This year, Robert Campbell's been super for the Rams as a pickup. Henshaw, O'Reilly, Marcus Carroll, these are the players that need to stand up tomorrow afternoon for the Rams to be able to take it up to the likes of Ryan McMahon and Harris and Stevie Kenner. They've got such a good spread across the ground, Baldwin. It doesn't matter where they play. They've regained their mojo at home, and they've still got it while they're away. And East Burwood Reserve is not going to cause them any trouble tomorrow. It's 8th versus 9th, Ben Waterworth out at Knox Gardens Reserves tomorrow afternoon with the Falcons taking on the Roos. Neither of these sides have won for a month.
So it will be very interesting, BWS, to see which team still has the motivation to keep on going throughout the end of the season. It's official now. Neither of these two teams will be taking part in the Division 1 Choose Tap EFL Finals Series. For East Ringwood, they've had a pretty ordinary run with injuries throughout the season. They've lost Bernie Deneen and Tom Goodwin and a handful of other players to serious long-term injuries. They have a great group of quality A-grade players. Anthony Van Ruin would be very hard to beat in their best and fairest this season. Gary Conyers has been in outstanding form. And of course, you've got the experience of Aaron Fiora and a couple of other players that really do add to that East Ringwood side. Knox have been quite disappointing. Ryan Jeffrey hasn't had much support up forward. He's kicked 24 goals for the season, and George Stuckey is the next best with 10 goals. Unfortunately for Knox, they just don't have the firepower, and out there at Knox Gardens Reserve, I don't think that'll hold any fears for East Ringwood. The Roos to win for mine.
Really difficult to work out which way this one's going to go tomorrow, Ben. Both the sides, since the halfway mark, they've lost form, they've lost players, so who's going to be able to step up for either side tomorrow? For Knox, Steve Ayalo's had a great year along with Brett Kay and Lucas Bakes. These are the players that need to stand up tomorrow at Knox. They know how to play Knox Gardens Reserve very well, Knox, and they've proven that over the last year and a half. But East Ringwood, they're striving for that win. They've been close in games over recent weeks. They've got players like Joel Perry and Andrew Andrew Renton and Matty Sharp, who have had really good years for the Roos and they had to stand up. Cameron Purdy's been good along with Adam Gibson. I just really think that Bernie Dineen will have this side fired up tomorrow afternoon. It's not often any side that Bernie's associated with loses more than 4 on a trot, and I just get the hunch that they might return to the winners list tomorrow, but I could be wrong, but I think this one's going to be close, the Roos to get up. Last game on the card is the match of the round out at Mullen Reserve. Daniel Cencic, Norwood taking on Scoresby. What a cracker of a match this is set to be.
They don't come too much bigger than this in Division 1 BWS. Two very good sides. Norwood sitting in 4th, Scoresby sitting 2nd. Two sides that are stuck in that logjam of teams on 10 wins and 3 losses for the year. Wowee. You look at the quality of both sides. David Johnson and Brent English have been fantastic this year. They've kicked 45 goals between them, and one of the main challenges in the pre-season for Norwood was who was going to kick their goals, with Williams leaving, of course, for Melbourne. But also Matthew McCormack, he plays up forward as well, and he puts on that pressure that really makes the opposition cough up the footy and can net goals for his own side. And Shane Clayton, fantastic form as well. The captain's in really good touch at the moment. But look at Scoresby. Christopher Hogle, Jaden Hogle combining up forward. We could be in for a bit of a shootout between David Johnson, Brett English and Norwood, and Christopher Hogle and Jaden Hogle up forward, who are firing great guns so far this season. And of course, Ben Waterworth's man, Benjamin Bronzegeist, is in fantastic form as well. Both sides, plenty of quality on the park. But I just think Norwood love a challenge. They come up against a Baldwin side a few weeks ago, which was also match of the round and out at Mullen Reserve. And of course, Norwood rose to the challenge and won the game comfortably. They love a challenge to the Norsemen. And I think given they've made Mullen Reserve a bit of a home fortress this year, Norwood will get up just.
Norwood like to strangle sides out at Mullen Reserve, and they come up against Scoresby, who are a free-flowing side tomorrow. And I just think that the Magpies might be on their day. I like the away side. I've liked a lot of the away sides this weekend. Scoresby to get up. Form versus form on last week. It'll be the Magpies to win this one. That's all the games in Division 1 done and dusted for another week, and of course all 22 matches now completed across the Eastern Football League. Tomorrow's match of the day on 98.1 Radio Eastern will be the big clash out at Donvale Reserve. Two sides vying for 4th spot in Donvale taking on Bayswater. Tune in from 1 till 6 on 98.1.
And don't forget to tune in to EFL Sunday from 10am till 12pm, where we chat to the winning coaches from across the Eastern Football League. EFL Sunday, proudly sponsored by Akira Urgent Care.
And how could you forget the mighty huddle every Wednesday night from 6 till 7pm? A little bit of a lighter look at the Eastern Football League, featuring a club in club corner, a forum segment, the burger hunt, and of course all our in-depth analysis and tips ahead of the big weekend of footy.
Really getting towards the business end of the season now, gentlemen, and it's always a pleasure on a Friday afternoon to go through all the games with you. Ben Waterworth, we'll see you out at Donvale tomorrow.
Can't wait, BWS. Should be an absolute ripper of a game.
And of course, joining us in the special comments chair will be Daniel Cencic. Thanks for your in-depth analysis this afternoon, Dan.
Yeah, can't wait to get out to Donvale tomorrow afternoon, BWS. It's going to be an absolute belter.
There's no better way to spend a Saturday afternoon than out at an EFL game. No matter what division you go to, you will have a terrific day. That's us signing off for another week of the Friday preview. And as a wise man once said, stick a fork in us, we're done.